You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. And on today's episode, we're reviewing the first Ashes Test between Australia and England from the Perth Stadium. It only lasted 2 days. 847 balls to be exact, the ninth lowest in a test with a result. The 26th test match ever to finish in 2 days, and the first Ashes test since 1921 in Nottingham at Trent Bridge, 104 years ago, that an Ashes test finished in 2 days. Travis Head produced an Ashes 100 to remember, and being in a strong position at lunch on day 2, England self-sabotaged with Bazball. And if this test is anything to go by, it could be a very short Ashes series. And maybe that is a thing, maybe that's a sign of things to come, I should say. But joining me to dissect, discuss, and unpick this first Ashes test that only went for 2 days, this crazy test match, is good friend of the podcast and Australian cricket fan, Jihan. Jihan, welcome. And it's always good to have you on the podcast, and especially talking about this crazy test match.
Yeah, thanks again, Jack. Great to be back on the podcast and dissecting and discussing what was a very short test match in the end.
Yes, it was. Well, as I said there, only the 26th test match to finish in 2 days, and there's been 2,600, I think, odd test matches to be played since 1877. And the first one in 104 years in Ashes cricket as well. So it was a crazy test match. It had ebbs and flows, and it produced some crazy cricket at times. Highly anticipated Ashes series, probably since 2005, with all the hype and the build-up. Many people disappointed. They wanted to see more than 2 days. But hopefully, what I said in the intro, hopefully this is not a sign of things to come. But with the second test being in Brisbane and a pink ball, maybe it could be Jihan. Maybe another 2-dayer, or maybe a 3-day affair. Let's hope we can push further than 2 days. But a crazy test match nonetheless. There's plenty to talk about and discuss and to unpick from this crazy test match in Perth to start this Ashes series. So, Jihan, let's recap ourselves with the scores and what happened in this test match, first of all. England batted first. They won the toss, and Ben Stokes said, we'll have a bat. They made 172 all out in their first innings. Harry Brook top scored with 51. Mitchell Starc was the standout for Australia, taking 7 wickets. Best career figures for him. Australia, in reply, were bowled out for 132. And Alex Carey top scored with 26. Ben Stokes took the second fifer of the match. He took 5 wickets for England. And England's second innings, they were bowled out for 164. Gus Atkinson top scored with 37. Scott Boland bounced back after being smashed in the first innings. He took 4 wickets. Australia was set 205 runs to win. They did it easily in the end. In 28.2 overs. There were 2 for 205 at the end. Travis Head, 123 not out. And Bryden Cast was the only wicket taker for England, taking the only 2 wickets to fall. Australia won by 8 wickets. And Travis Head, rightly so, adjudged the player. I realised I made a mistake there, Jihan. It was Mitchell Starc who was the player of the match. Mm-hmm. Maybe my South Australian bias got in the way there, Jihan. Travis Head being from South Australia. So I do apologise. It was actually Mitchell Starc who was the player of the match. But if it was shared, it would have been with Mitchell Starc as well. Both of them deserved the player of the match. But Mitchell Starc was rightly named the player of the match. So I do apologise for that little oversight on my behalf. As I said, Jihan, maybe my South Australian bias kicked in there. But nonetheless, Mitchell Starc deserved it to be player of
Can't
the
have
match.
a you can't have a New South Welshman getting the man of the match from your perspective.
That's right. That's very true. Very true indeed. So that's what happened in terms of the scores and how this test match went down across the 2 days. Fast forward mode, that's for sure. Key moments and key factors in this game. What were the moments that really decided this game in the way that it ended up with Australia winning? Well, pretty much you have to say Scott Boland's spell after lunch on day 2, taking the wicket of Duckett, and then he got the wicket of Pope, and then Brooke, and then Stark got the wicket of Root, and England lost 3 for none after being 99 runs in the lead with 1 wicket down for 59 at lunch, and that's where that game pretty much turned on its head on that second day. And then obviously Travis Head's 100 was another decisive factor in this game. He really took it to England and just took the game away from England, as we will discuss a bit later on in this review of the first test. But Travis Head's 100 was another deciding factor. So those couple of moments there really swung this game in Australia's favour and really decided where this game was won and lost. So some of the key moments and key factors there from this first Ashes test. Jihan, let's talk about Australia's performance, first of all, in this first Ashes test. Talk about how they performed with bat and ball, but how they ended up winning this test match. At one stage, it looked like Australia were going to face a very heavy defeat, but they were able to turn things around, find a way to fight back, and be it with England letting themselves down with Bazball and self-sabotaging their own prospects of winning this game, Australia were able to seize on the moment and pounce on it, and they took it with both hands. The first innings, in terms of the batting, they were bowled out for 132. They were 40 runs behind. They struggled against England's pace attack, who bowled pretty well, but then they responded and were able to chase down 205 in the second innings to win with only 2 wickets down. Obviously, we mentioned Travis Head's 100, but also Marnus Labuschagne and Jake Weatherall really set the foundation there with the bat. In terms of the bowling side of things, they bowled England out for 172 after losing the toss. Mitchell Starc led the way with 7 wickets there. Conceded a 40-run deficit, but they did well to bowl England out for 164. And as I mentioned earlier, Scott Boland sparked that England batting collapse after lunch, and then England lost 3 wickets for none pretty quickly and just fell away, really. And Australia were able to fight back in this test match. And Scott Boland bounced back after a tough first innings, and Brendan Doggett did well on debut. So Australia will be very pleased to win and go 1-0 up in the series. They weren't at their best, 100%, but they were able to seize on the key moments and were able to bounce back in this test match. So, Jihan, your overall thoughts on Australia? How would you assess their performance across bat and ball in this first test match of this Ashes series?
Yeah, well, I think their bowling was very good. England's batting was terrible, so I suppose that that assisted Australia in their bowling efforts a little bit. But I thought overall they were really good. I mean, Mitchell Starc went in there with, well, I was going to say a couple of inexperienced guys, but Scott Boland has been around for a little bit. So, but I did still feel that he had to lead the attack, and that's exactly what he did. In the first innings, apparently they weren't too happy about the ball. They couldn't get it. He couldn't get it to swing, but he was really good in the first innings. Scott Boland couldn't get his length right in the first innings. So yeah, Mitchell Starc really led the attack well there. I thought Brendan Doggett did a good job. He bowled okay. He wasn't scything through the England batting order. It was nothing special, but he did what he had to do, and I thought he bowled pretty well. One thing that disappointed me from the Australian perspective was I thought that the batting was pretty poor in the first innings. I mean, if you look at it, that's the reason the Test match lasted 2 days. Looking back on the Test match now, England batted 67 overs across 2 innings. So, and that's going to keep happening if they don't. If I'm honest, if they don't change their attitude. So, they're not going to bat too many overs if they keep batting the way they think is going to be successful, which is Bazball or whatever. But I think the disappointment for me was Australia batted poorly in the first innings. And I'm actually talking more about the middle to lower order batting. I think Australia were a little bit, when you look at it, they were kind of a little bit rattled when Khawaja wasn't able to open. Suddenly, people, you know how it is when the batting order suddenly has to change, and people are scrambling around to get pads and things on. And one of the things leading into this series was when people were talking about the lineup. One of the things that a lot of people talked about was Marnus opening, and so that they didn't have to bring in a fresh opener. And I was thinking, please don't do that. You've got to keep Marnus at 3. That's his. That's where he's going to do well, and you need that Marnus at 3, Smith at 4, and Head at 4. I think I even said in the preview, but that's their engine room: 3, 4, 5. Marnus, Smith, Head is where they're going to score the majority of the runs. And unfortunately, because of this thing with Usman Khawaja's back spasms, you had a situation where you don't want Marnus opening because you want him at 3. Smith has gone up to open in the last couple of years ago, and it didn't work out. So you don't want him opening either. And then Jake Weatherald is, as a new opener, has pretty much beaten for pace, missed a straight ball, leg side-ish, LBW. And then you've got a situation where you've got 2 people you don't want to be opening who are actually opening. So that was the worst possible scenario. And coupled with that, the England bowlers were running in Archer and Wood bowling at 150 k's an hour, and the pitch was playing a few tricks as well towards the end of that day. Smith got hit on the elbow by Axonson, who's not as quick as the other 2, but he was bowling okay, and I think that threw them off. When you look back at it, that threw them off a fair bit. It was sort of like, we haven't got our settled opening partnership in. All of a sudden, it's Marnus and Smith batting together. We're 1 down, and the ball's doing a few tricks, and the ball's kicking up off a length, and the England bowlers bowling really well. That's fine. I'm okay. That's going to happen. But then, what was really disappointing for me from Australia was when they finally got through that. They'd lost 4 wickets. I mean, Jofra Archer had got Marnus and Weatherald, and Bryden Cast got Steve Smith and Khawaja. Steve Smith got an absolute beat. I don't know how you play that ball, if I'm honest. And Bryden Cast, you got to be worried about Bryden Cast because he bowls balls like that, like angling in, seaming away, taking the edge, getting caught at slip. And when you're bowling at Steve Smith, you've got such a fine margin for error when it comes to trying to get that ball in the perfect spot, and he did exactly that. It's just one of those balls where, like, okay, if you're getting Steve Smith out in that way, then that's pretty much the perfect ball. And then I think with Marnus, he maybe misjudged the ball. It was maybe leapt off a length a little bit. But good bowling. And at that point, Australia are under pressure. They're under pressure. They're 4 down. But at that point, Head and Green, they settled things down. They were actually going okay. They were starting to make things look a little bit easier. But the thing that was disappointing for me was they lost 5 wickets to Ben Stokes' licorice all sorts, basically. So I think they could have got through that period. It's become a bit of a trend in the Optus Stadium Test matches that by day 2 it gets a lot easier to bat, and I think what they needed to do was just get through that period, especially after they lost 4 early wickets and England were really on top. To come in for Ben Stokes to come in and just take 5 wickets from really not, I don't think he bowled amazingly. I don't think a lot of those balls were great balls. I'll highlight 4 of the dismissals in particular, like Travis Head just flicking a ball off sort of a pull shot straight to mid-on. That's a soft wicket. Maybe the ball didn't come off the surface as much as as quick as he thought it was going to, but that's a poor dismissal. Cameron Green, after looking so good, just went after a wide ball. I don't think he was even looking at the ball. When you're driving in Perth, you want to have it under your eyes, and he obviously didn't do that. So that was poor. And then Alex Carey, I've got to say that was a terrible shot, like getting caught at third man, and there was no need for that. And he was batting a little bit frenetically at the time, backing away, trying to hit the ball through the offside, and it was sort of like, well, you're only 50 or 60 runs behind England here. Like, what's the need for this? Being so frenetic. And I was just thinking back to, I don't know if you remember. Can you remember that one-day series in England that they won 2-1 when him and Maxwell scored hundreds?
Yes, Old Trafford. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were chasing over 300. They were like something like 70 for 5, and both him and Maxwell scored hundreds. He got out exactly the same. He got out that way when the score's on 80, but fortunately for him, Jofra Archer had bowled a no ball, so he got away with it. And then went on to get 100. He kept playing that shot as well, but kept getting away with it. And then he actually once he got the 100, he finally got out exactly the same way. So it's one of those shots where that uppercut over third man, and he doesn't play it over the slips. He plays it more square. So if there's a third man in place, there's always a chance for him to get out. And it's one of those things where, one of those shots for him, it's a bit of a get out of jail shot for him, I think, along with the sweep and reverse sweep against the spinners. Like, I think when he feels a little bit under pressure, he just plays that shot, and it's a low percentage shot. So that irritated me a little bit, because there was just no need for that. And then Mitchell Starc just slogging the ball to mid-on. Yeah, I know he's a bowler, but like, if you're going to bat at number 8, I think you just have to take a little bit more responsibility than that.
We can forgive him a bit. I think he was a bit ticked off that after all the work he did in the first innings, bowling the way he did and leading the attack, he didn't want to be out there batting.
Well, that's
when he
that's
was.
Right.
So
that's very.
I think
true.
we can forgive him for that. He had a pretty good Test match. Took 10 wickets, but
he did. He did. But like those. They gifted 4 wickets to Ben Stokes from and that was what sort of turned the game towards England. When you looked at it on the first day, they bowled well with the new ball, and it was difficult. It was difficult. The run rate wasn't going anywhere. Marnus and Smith were struggling. They had to face the new ball. As they were getting away, both of them got out. But the point is, Head and Green, when the ball was getting a bit soft and the bowlers were getting a bit tighter, they started looking okay, and then Stokes came in and just, I think he bought himself about 4 wickets there, and then he got Scott Boland.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he got Scott Boland nicked off. That's fine. But I mean, actually, when you look at that scorecard, between Doggett and Lyon, they batted 50 balls between them. Doggett hung around for 30 balls. They can't have been that.
They did. They put on 11 for that 10th partnership.
So
Lyon and Doggett.
Yeah, so that at that point I was really disappointed, because I just sort of thought they did so well to bowl England out for 170 in the first innings, and then to just give it away like that. And I thought there was no need for that kind of. I thought there was no need for that sort of aggression towards the end. You're only 50 or 60 away from England's 170, like Carey's with the tail. Okay, just just get the score up to that much and then see what you can do, try and get a lead. That's, I didn't understand why Carey in particular was batting so frenetically that day.
Well, I suppose when you're the experienced batter and you're batting with the tail, and in England at that point were bowling pretty well, you thought, I might as well just get some quick runs because we may not last long. So you're in that.
Yeah, but I think that was the wrong thinking, because the pitch wasn't doing much at that point. The ball had
the ball was older as well at that point.
The ball was older, and there was nothing in Ben Stokes' bowling that was threatening at that point. So I think they threw their wickets away a little bit, and the fact that Brendan Dockett batted for so long sort of proves that.
He looked pretty comfortable, actually. They were bowling short balls at him, and he played them pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just sort of like, I don't know what got into Australia on that evening. I think, I don't know, maybe they panicked a little bit and thought, we're losing wickets. The only way out of this is to attack the ball.
You have to give some credit to England as well. That's probably we'll talk about it when we talk about England's performance, but probably their best performance in Australia with the ball for some time.
They did bowl, the quicks bowled really well. They bowled really well. The pitch was misbehaving a little bit as well. But I think, just once the ball got soft, there was no need you just needed to eke runs out and try and get towards whatever England scored. Because that if you can get towards or close to what England have scored in the first innings, you can try and attack them again with the ball in the second innings. But anyway, they got a lead of England got a lead of 40. And my worry was that the same thing was going to happen as what happened in the Test match last year, when the pitch flattened out and Kohli and Jaiswal just piled on the runs. I thought the same thing was going to happen this time, but in the end, you can kind of always rely on Bazball to do the work for you. So that's exactly what happened. No, that's exactly what happened. So I think I was watching the preview that we did last year for the Ashes, and I said I don't think Bazball's going to work here, particularly on the bouncier, pacier wickets. And I think this Test match has pretty much proved that. And I think I said in the quick preview we did last week, the only way that it will work for England is if the bowlers are able to keep up with the pace of the game that the batsmen are setting. As in, if they're going to score quickly, the bowlers are going to have to take wickets really quickly as well, which they did, to be fair, in this match in the first innings. But then what happened was they weren't able to back that up in the second innings because I guess they run out of puff. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, we'll talk about that a bit more when we talk about England's bowling, Jihan, because it's a very good point that you raised there, and a lot of people have made those observations as well about their bowling. But I would agree with much of what you said. As Australia's batting in the first innings was pretty well, let's be honest, both sides didn't bat well, let's be honest. The only one that made everyone look foolish was Travis Head doing what he was doing.
I think the disappointment for me was not so much the top order batting for Australia, that they were under pressure. England bowled really well. It's more how the middle to lower order fell away once that pressure was released, and how they just gifted wickets away to Ben Stokes. I think that's the thing that annoyed me the most. Yeah, no, that's very true. Just the manner of how the wickets fell. But no doubt the second innings, they were a bit more positive, and we saw that from Travis Head and Jake Weatherald. Obviously, Khawaja couldn't come out and open again because of the back spasms. So Travis Head said, I'll do it. And boy, he certainly put on a show, Jihan. 69 balls for that 100. The third fastest, the second fastest in Ashes cricket behind Gilchrist's 57 against England in 2006-07 at the Wacker, and obviously Gilbert Jessop
in the last century, and 76 balls in 1902. So just shows you how well he played. But he batted responsibly, took his time, and I think it really helped Jake Weatherald as well. Travis Head and Jake Weatherald have played a lot for South Australia when Jake was still at South Australia. Now he's at Tasmania now, but they've been good friends and good teammates for South Australia and the Strikers. So they know each other well. They've batted with each other well. And also Travis said, it was about doing my part for the team as well, and seeing if we can knock over these runs, which Australia did. But it was also to help Jake Weatherald on debut as well, and we saw that that's the effect that someone like a Travis Head can have, is that you ooze confidence with him at the other end, and you can do your own thing. We saw that with Weatherald, and we saw that with Marnus especially.
Yeah,
when Travis Head and Marnus were batting together, it reminded me of what happened in Arbabad in 2023, Jihan, when Australia won the World Cup and Travis Head did what he did.
Oh, yeah.
They added 117 for that second wicket partnership when they were batting in this Test match. And obviously Head and Weatherald 75, which pretty much set the tone, really. But, Travis Head, he just has this ability of taking away games and, reminds me of Adam Gilchrist in so many ways, Jihan. He's a match winner. And it paid off for Australia. And there's talk about he should open the remainder of the series, which we'll talk about a bit later on when we preview the second test and talk about Australia's options there. But it paid off in the circumstances, and he was able to get the job done. And England had no answers for him at all. They just didn't know what to do. They didn't know where to bowl. They went to the short stuff early. Yes, that is a weakness of Travis Head, but once he gets used to it, he gets in and gets set, he plays the pull and hook shot pretty well. And he hit a few sixes as well in these innings. And, Weatherald and Labuschagne were able to feed off that and was able to take this game away. Your thoughts on Travis Head, Jihan, because you were actually there on day 2 watching in person. How would you describe Travis Head's innings? Is it probably one of the best Ashes hundreds we've seen? And what did you like about Travis Head and how he approached this run chase, Jihan?
Yeah, I think probably the best Ashes 100 I've seen. The Steve Waugh one in the Sydney Test of 03 is up there, but I don't rate that as highly because they didn't win the Test match. They ended up losing pretty badly, actually. Gilchrist at the Wacker in 2000.
That was more declaration. England were knackered and the situation of the game.
Oh, there's another one that I remember as a kid that's hasn't been talked about that much recently, is Gilchrist's 150 at Edgbaston. That was in 2001. But again, that was after the rest of the top order had all scored runs, and he was in towards the end and just was driving the nail in, sort of, so to speak. But yeah, I think this was a great innings in the context that it was to chase down a total in a game that had been a low scoring game up until then. In terms of the innings itself, I'm going to say something a bit odd here, but I thought his first 20 balls, he just defended well.
No, he did.
Yeah, he was only 3 off 20 balls or something. Like he was just getting his iron. He was keeping out the bad balls. He was defending. He had a solid defense. And that's the difference between England's Bazball approach and proper Test match batting. Like, he just got his iron. He got his iron. He defended well, and initially all he was doing was putting the bad balls away. They bowled on his legs. He flicked it through square leg for 4. They bowled short outside off stump. He cut it over point for 4. And that's actually how he got going. And Weatherald at the other end was actually doing the same thing initially. And he didn't take too many risks. The only time in that innings where I thought, oh my God, he's going to get out here, was when he sliced that ball over third man for 6. And that's the way that teams have got him out for, like, they planned that way, just bowl wide outside off stump and get him to slash, and they set a third man. And that was, I remember him getting out like that a few times, even in the series in 2018-19 against India. That was a while ago. That was the way they planned to get him out. But fortunately, this time, it was just wide enough that he was managed to get as much.
Yeah, I do believe it was off Mark Wood as well.
Was it Mark Wood? Was it?
Yeah, I think it was Mark Wood who was bowling. Sliced over third man for 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he just got enough bat on it to go for 6. And then the other moment where I thought, I don't think, when I think about it, like, it's one of those shots you could play and get caught, but he hit it so well it went for 6. It was when he sort of stepped inside the line and went for that sort of flick pull shot over fine leg, because the fine leg was back, but he was so confident that he was going to get it over his head, and it's a short boundary on that side. So it's one of those, when you watch that live, you're thinking, oh, don't get caught, and then it flies over the head, and you're like, okay, great shot. But those are the only 2 moments I can think of. Everything else was just like proper cricket shots. How many times did he run down the pitch? How many times did he play scoops or reverse scoops? How many times?
None that comes to mind. He
how many times?
Crease and
how many times was he driving away from his body and it wafty in the air? He didn't do any of that.
No,
he nailed a couple of cover drives, but like the balls had to be half volleys. Like, if he was getting on the front foot, they had to be a half volley, and that's just normal batting. It
is.
I think I was thinking about this the other day, like yesterday. I think the problem for England is they've gotten so used to batting on these slow, low feather beds that do nothing in order to sort of facilitate their baseball, so-called baseball games. I think they have, as a unit, have forgotten the method of batting in Test cricket. I mean,
yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah, definitely.
You can still score 100 off 69 balls like Travis Head did, but with
proper cricket shots.
Shots, yeah.
Being smart about it.
Being smart, and risk-free cricket.
That's exactly right.
And I think the other thing is, I think once he started getting away from them, I've got to say, England bowled complete rubbish at him. I don't know what Ben Stokes was doing. Like, the bowling was set for short bowling, and it was just ball after ball was short. He knew what was coming. Like, when you're walking around the crease and just hitting the ball where you want, that means that you know the ball's not going to be on the stumps, right? So he was hitting the ball over third man. He was pulling. Every ball was short, and it gets a bit ridiculous when you're seeing Marnus doing the same thing towards the end, flat batting the ball over mid off after moving towards square leg.
Well, that's what Travis Head does, instilling the confidence in his partner at the other end, and Marnus was able to play in that free-flowing manner.
And then Marnus played he played like the shot where he did the same thing and played this like tennis shot over mid-wicket.
Yes.
And it's just like he's doing that because he knows where the ball's going to be. It's just like they both know that they're just going to bowl short tripe.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what happened. So I think the bowling was, after a while, it was very poor. And the captaincy was poor as well, because he was telling his bowlers to bowl that, ball in, ball out, and both of them, they knew where the ball, where it was going to be bowled. So yeah, it was very poor. It was really poor. Yeah. But yeah, and the thing is, like Travis Head scored that 100 off 69, 120 off 80 odd balls. Marnus scored 50 off 49, so he was he was up there as well with the run rate.
Which is good to see. Which is good to see from Marnus, and
Yeah.
he's been in good form this summer. 500s, 3 in the Shield, 2 in the
Mm.
domestic one-day stuff for Queensland. He's talked about a different mindset, a different approach, and it's good to see from him. And we saw that in this first Test match.
Yeah, this is the thing for me. Like looking back at this first Test match, I'm still very confident. I know you're going to laugh about this, but I'm still very confident that Australia could win this 5-0.
Well, I think many people would agree with you there, Jihan. If England keep playing the way they are, then yes, I think it's more likely.
Yeah, and they keep saying they're going to play that way, so it's very likely they will. I think what Australia need to realise is, look, all we need to do is get runs on the board. It doesn't matter how we do it. We can attack, we can defend. We shouldn't give our wickets away like they did in the first innings towards the end. But we need to get runs on the board. We get runs on the board, Bazball will do the rest for us. I think that's what they need to. That's the way they need to be thinking. And also particularly on these faster bouncy wickets like Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide has a bit of carry. Yeah, England might get on a flatty in Melbourne and Sydney and pull off Bazball. Yeah, it may happen. It may happen on those flatter wicket, on those slower flatter wickets, but
not so much in Perth as we saw, and potentially with this day-night test in Brisbane probably won't be the case.
Yeah, because they're always going to give away opportunities. I mean, the other point I was going to make was, I think as much as this the kamikaze batting of England has produced a lot of chances for Australia to take wickets, I think they have also exposed quite a few technical flaws in England's top order as well. When you look at it, I mean, it's all well and good bashing the ball all over the place on a slow, low featherbed in Edgbaston. That's not going to work in Perth or in Brisbane when there's pace and bounce and a bit of sideways movement. I think when you look at if you looked at some of those dismissals, both Duckett and Pope got out. Duckett in the first innings, Pope in the second. Both Duckett and Pope in the first innings got out falling over the ball, just missing a straight ball essentially. So that there's a technical issue there. And then Duckett in the second innings, he edged quite a few through the slip cordon. So I think you can you need to try and get him forward, and you can challenge him there. One thing I noticed was in the second innings when Boland was starting to get on top of Duckett, he ran down the pitch. This is just before lunch. He ran down the pitch to try and upset his length, and he got cracked on the elbow. Ended up taking a fair bit of time out of the game at the time. And then I think the next ball was the ball that he was given LBW, but pitched just outside off stump.
Yes.
Outside leg stump. And I remember I said, in the preview we did, Boland needs to be able to find a way of keeping him in the crease. And I said, with a decent bouncer. But I noticed when he came back after lunch, Duckett was very hesitant to get that on the pitch after he got hit on the elbow. And then he ended up fending off and getting caught in the slip. So that's an area you can target. Harry Brook, the way he got out in the second innings, just very poor technique, playing well away from the body, driving on the up, foot nowhere near the pitch of the ball. So and you need to try and get him out like that when he first comes in. If he gets his eye in, then things will be a bit different. But I remember that Oval. Can you remember when he scored 85 at the Oval in the last Test match of 2023?
Yeah.
Yeah. He edged the ball, I reckon, about 5 times with that kind of shot. 2 of them were dropped. A few of them went through the gap. And eventually, when he was on 85, one got held. So that's what I mean. He's always going to give you those opportunities. So, and also that's why you need to attack, especially when they first come in. Look, Steve Smith's captaincy was pretty good in this first Test match, but there's a couple of things I didn't agree with. One was this persistence with the short ball and keeping the field out to the tail enders. I didn't understand that because it wasn't working. And then the other thing was when Harry Brook first came in the second innings. Why have you got mid off at long off? That made no sense. Like, I know he got out, but the thing is, it's like you want the mid off in to encourage him to play that shot. You don't want him just like blocking it down to mid off. I mean, in the end, what happened was Harry Brook was so idiotic he went for it anyway. But those sort of things I don't understand, like putting the field out in that sense. But if when Cummins comes back, it's going to be interesting to see how he differs to what Steve Smith. I have a feeling he'll be even more defensive than Steve Smith, but yeah, remains to be seen.
Yeah, obviously they'll have different leadership styles and tactics, Smith and Cummins. But I thought Smith captained well, as always, and I thought Australia, did well in the field. There were a couple of incidences where they dropped a catch, Usman Khawaja off Jamie Smith in the second innings off Stark in that batting collapse. And there was an overthrow that went for 4, I think. So a couple of incidences like that in the field, but I thought Australia's fielding was good. They caught well and their ground fielding was good. And be it on a slow outfield as well in Perth. But nonetheless, despite those two poor efforts in the field, overall they did pretty well, and they were able to take those chances. A quick word on Mitchell Starc, Jihan. We can't let him go unnoticed. 10 wickets, best career figures, overtaking the 6 for 9 that he got against the West Indies when they were bowled out for 27 in that day-night test in Jamaica, where Starc got 3 wickets in the first over and got 400 test wickets in the process, in his 100th test as well. He comes out here, no Hazelwood, no Cummins. He leads the attack, took 7 wickets in the first innings and took 3 in the second. He got rid of Stokes twice. He got rid of Root twice, which is something to be watching throughout the series as it progresses. There wasn't much swing on offer for him, but he was able to use the angles and use his variations with the wobble seam as he's picked up from Cummins and Hazelwood, as he's talked about. He's probably bowling as he's ever bowled, Jihan. He's in career best form. He's getting better year on year. I think his average has come down as well. I think it's 27 now, his bowling average. So that's good. It just shows that he's on top of his game. And I remember from his debut test against New Zealand in 2011 until now, he's a very different bowler. He's had a lot of scrutiny. Obviously, Shane Warne said he was, a bit erratic and leaking runs and all that stuff with those comments that he made about Starc. But Starc has proved people wrong, and he just keeps doing it, Jihan. So your quick thoughts on Mitchell Starc's performance, and, how would you rate his performance across these 2 bowling performances in this first test?
Yeah, look, I think he's just getting better and better with age. For a long time, there was a point around 2019 where he wasn't even a permanent fixture in the side. Guys like Peter Siddle and James Patterson were getting in ahead of him at times. When you look at his record, I was surprised even like a couple of years ago when I looked at his record. I was like, wow, he's approaching 400 wickets. I didn't, you didn't even notice that he had taken so many wickets and played for so long. Like, I suppose he's been playing for 14 years now. But really, he's only established himself as a permanent member of that 3-prong pace attack in the last, probably since 2019. And up
probably
until
after that Ashes series in 2019, I
England,
don't think he played every test. I think he played a couple and then he missed out a few. And then I think since then he's been a mainstay in the side.
Yeah, and I also thought to myself, like, how has he got so many wickets? I only really remember him like taking 3-fers and 4-fers, and I never really seem to remember him getting like the massive hauls like Hazelwood and Cummins have done in the past.
Well, I suppose when you've got Hazelwood and Cummins and Nathan Lyon, they're taking wickets as well, so they're being shared around. So
they were being shared around, and you know, like when you you remember the big hauls that Johnson got back in the days as well. So I think for a long time when you look at it, he's just been really consistent. He's just got wickets. He's got maybe 3 for in each innings, but he's always got the wickets. And then I was looking at his big hauls, and he's taken 2 against Sri Lanka, 1 in Canberra 6 years ago in 2019, and another one in Sri Lanka, I think. Both.
Well, I do remember in Sri Lanka he got 11 wickets in one of the.
Yeah, I think that must have been 2016, maybe. Yeah,
2016.
Yeah. So, but I don't remember too many of them. I don't even really remember him getting many 5-fers, if I'm honest. Because he's always consistent. He's just literally got 3-fers and 4-fers every single innings, and that's what he's done for the last 6 years. So it's got to the point now where he's been so consistent and has been improving so much as he's aged, that now he's reaping the rewards of the big hauls. I think that's when you look at it, that's the way things have gone. He got that. Was it 6 for 9 in Jamaica?
Yes.
And it's just carried on from there. And also, one thing I'd say is recently he just seems to have a lot more control than he used to. So he's not bowling as much, or not bowling as many 4 balls as he used to, searching for wickets. So in some ways become a lot more reliable, which is great for Australia because they're missing the other 2 at the moment. So if you can rely on Stark to give you a bit of control, that's great.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously think about what's he going to do in the second test in Brisbane with the pink ball. We just mentioned about what happened in Jamaica with the Duke's ball, and this is a Kookaburra ball for Brisbane. He's well up there, and I think if he continues on, he's going to take a lot more wickets. But my prediction for him as a leading wicket taker of this series, Jihan, is looking good already. 10 wickets after the first test is pretty good. So. Yeah,
my prediction was Hazelwood as long as he doesn't get injured, and then he got
injured. Well, obviously you may need to rethink that, Jihan. But he's done pretty well, Starkey, and it's great to see him bowling well, and he led the attack well. Good support from Scott. He bounced back in the second innings, and obviously Brendan Doggett did well on debut as well. Nathan Lyon didn't do much. He wasn't needed, but no doubt he'll have a role to play in the series. And Cameron Green chipped in with a wicket here and there. So, Australia's performance, not at 100%, but they did enough, and they were able to seize those opportunities that England gave to them. If they can work on a few areas with their batting, everything else will click into place, and
exactly
they'll definitely get the motor running. But
that's exactly what I'm thinking. And the thing is, it's sort of like it's a good feeling when you haven't actually played that well, but you end up still smashing the opposition
in 2 days. Gives you tremendous confidence. But no doubt they'll hopefully work on those areas, and they'll get into this series proper. And Brisbane will be a good way to do that with their record with the day-night test with the pink ball compared to England. So a rating, Jihan. I thought we might as well try that. For this Ashes series, a bit of a rating. How would you rate Australia out of 10?
In this last test match, I'd say I'm going to be harsh here. I'm going to say 6.5.
Okay, it's not bad. I would say probably 7 out of 10. mainly that came down a little bit because of their batting. But, I think that's a true reflection of how they played. Even though they won, they weren't at their best at 100%, but they were able to win those pivotal moments and were able to seize those opportunities. So I think many people would have a similar rating when it comes to that. So that's Australia, Jihan. So that's how they performed across this first test match with bat and ball and overall performance. Let's move on, Jihan, and talk about England. I don't think we're going to spend too much time speaking about England, Jihan, because it's pretty obvious what people have said after the fallout of this first test match. But we'll talk about it nonetheless. They were in a strong position. They threw it away because of their poor batting, especially in the second innings. Pope, Brook, Root driving away from their body on the up. That sparked a batting collapse. It was pretty poor. They let themselves down. They've only got themselves to blame. That's what happened in the last Ashes series where they lost at Edgbaston and they were 2-0 down after Lords. Poor batting, plus Travis Head stopped them from winning this test match. Their bowling in the first innings was pretty good. They were able to bowl Australia out for 132 and get a 40-run lead. Archer and Wood, Carson, Atkinson all bowled well together. The batting, 1 for 59, leading by 99 at lunch on day 2, a strong position, and they weren't able to seize that. They lost 3 for none pretty quickly through Scott Boland getting rid of Ben Duckett, but then obviously got rid of Pope, and then Brook, and then Stark got rid of Root for the second time in the series, and they just fell downhill from there. And the bowling in the second innings, as we've touched on, Jihan, they didn't have any answers for Travis Head, as you said earlier. They just looked shell-shocked. And they went to the short ball ploy early. It was a bit predictable. And Travis Head was able to seize on that. And the bowlers in the second innings, their speeds were down significantly than in the first innings. And that's something that we'll touch on and talk about because that's been overlooked by a lot of people. But Jihan, your assessment on England, I don't think it's going to be glowing. I think you're going to be quite harsh, but how would you assess their performance in this first test match? Because they did really let themselves down and had their pants pulled down by Travis Head, it had to be said, after the 2 days.
Yeah, I think I'm giving them 4 out of 10, and if not for their bowling in the first innings, I would give them 2 out of 10, if I'm honest. The batting was really poor across the whole test match. I mean, they only batted for 60 or 65 overs or something across the 2 innings. So the batting was terrible. The bowling was good in the first innings, but they lost the plot in the second innings once Travis Head got going, and even a little bit Marnus Labuschagne towards the end. And I thought Ben Stokes' captaincy was really poor in that last innings as well. I thought his plans were pretty terrible, and he just didn't seem to be able to adjust, change things as the game was getting away from him.
I think that describes Bazball in a nutshell, Jihan. It's pretty one-trick pony sort of thing,
Yeah,
it's pretty predictable,
exactly.
And you know what to expect. With their batting, they're going to go hard and attack and boss the game. And with their bowling plans, it's either bowl full or short and set fields for that. So it does become predictable, and it's a bit of a one-trick pony. And teams prepare for that, and I think Australia's prepared for that in this series, as we've talked about before when we talked about Australia, is that they know what to expect from England's batters. You hang it out wide, outside off stump, they're going to drive and nick off, and that's what happened, especially with Pope, Brook, and Root. And with the bowling plans, as soon as that, the full tactic with the new ball doesn't bring any results, they go to the short ball ploy. And Travis Head made them look foolish by doing that. So, yeah, it did look a bit, pretty much they were shell-shocked in that second innings. They just didn't know what to do. Travis Head was in one of those moods, which he was, and they just didn't know what to do, especially Stokes when he was out there captaining. But also the speeds, Jihan. Now, a lot of people say that they didn't have enough rest. Well, what about Australia? They had to come out the next day too, but their speeds didn't drop off dramatically. I think Stark was still bowling 140 in his second innings, and the other bowlers were bowling similar as well for Australia. But for England, the speeds dropped off massively, especially with Wood and Archer, who haven't had a lot of cricket, who have had some injury concerns. Archer's only played 2 test matches this year, and they were against India. This is the 3rd test he's playing, that he played against Australia here in Perth. Mark Wood hasn't played any cricket until early this year in the Champions Trophy, where he got injured with that knee injury. And their speeds dropped off dramatically. Jihan, what are your thoughts on that? Because I think that's been overlooked. I know people have said that they didn't have enough rest and whatever. They bowled well in the first innings. But the second innings, that really was telling with their speeds, all of them, but mainly with Archer and Wood, who are the 2 big weapons for England in this Ashes series and got to rely on their pace. Doesn't look good, especially when you go deeper and deeper into the series. How would they come up after 3 test matches or 4 or 5? So your thoughts on that, Jihan, in terms of should we be paying more attention to this than we are?
Oh, well, definitely we should. I mean, when you look at it, I was just looking at the scorecard now. Mark Wood only bowled 8 overs in the first innings, and Jofra Archer bowled 9. I mean, if you're bowling that many overs and then suddenly your pace drops off so much, then that's obviously going to be a problem for you and your team. But also at the same time, from an Australian perspective, that's something that we need to note down, and we need to be bringing these guys into their second and third spells, and really trying to grind them down. And if they're struggling in the first test match of the series, how are they going to be by the third or fourth? So look, they can bowl amazing spells for an hour or so, or the first session. But just all Australia's batting need to do is just survive that. Bring them into the second session, third session without losing wickets. Without losing wickets to Ben Stokes with silly shots, make them come back for their second and third spells, and then by second and third, through the series, by the second, third, or fourth test matches, they may even break down and may not be available for the rest of the series. So I think that's something that Australia.
That was always the risk. Sorry to cut you off there, Jihan, but that was always the risk with Archer and Wood, wasn't it? Going into the series. They really wanted these 2 to be here, but already after the first test, the signs are there, and probably the writing is on the wall, even after the first test. And they bowled short spells too. They only bowled like 2 or 3 over spells. It's not like they bowled massive spells, but even with that, that's a concern as well.
Well, I mean, at their pace, they're struggling they're going to struggle to bowl long spells. So I remember even back in 2019, before that Ashes series, I remember thinking, well, Jofra Archer hardly bowls long, loads of overs in a county game. He's more of a white ball bowler. And then he had that one.
I suppose it stems back from when Joe Root was captain and overbowled him, and maybe they're a bit cautious with Archer now. And maybe that was a little bit with Archer in the first test with Ben Stokes, just trying to ease him into the series. But also with Mark Wood as well, going into the game with a hamstring problem in that warm-up match that, he had a bit of hamstring tightness or something. But Was he 100% fit? They said he was, but judging by his productivity in this test match, maybe not the case that he was 100% fit.
Yeah, I got that. I did have that feeling, but he did bowl 150 Ks in the first innings, albeit only for 8 overs. But yeah, I think I said in the preview with these bowlers, I'm not sure how long they're going to last across the 5-test series, and the Australian batsmen need to know. They need to think about that, and they need to know that these guys are going to come in and bowl quick for a couple of spells, but then after that, it's going to get easier. And they need to think about that, and they just need to grind them down. And the thing is, it actually wasn't that hot in Perth this week, or the week of the Test match. I think the first day was 28 degrees, second day was 25, but in Brisbane it's going to be hot and humid.
Yeah.
So if you can get on top of the bowling, you can really start to grind them down, and then they're going to struggle to back up. It's
also the same with their reserve bowlers as well. Potts, Tongue.
Yeah.
Are you going to get much from them? Probably not. You're probably going to get the same. So that's a concern as well. Even their backup bowlers, how they're going to go.
Well, this is the thing. That Australia, they just need to grind these bowlers down. And then I don't think... Yeah, it all looks great. 4 quicks bowling on a pacey Perth pitch. Day one, ball's doing a bit.
And we've got to remember they didn't have a specialist spinner. They didn't play Shoaib Bashir. I know Joe Root only bowled 1 over, but that was when the game was gone, really, and that was the last over of the match. But they didn't have a spinner to use as well. Maybe that could be a bit of a rethink of the plans, but, they're sort of banking on this all-pace, but it may not be the
all-pace attack, yeah. But the thing is, you can have an all-pace attack, but you have to be able to be sustainable, because it's not going to be, there are going to be times when the wicket gets easy to bat on, and if you're not going to, if you're not going to be able to get through that, and then if you have to bowl a few more overs than you thought you were going to because the wicket's flattened out, but not be able to back up after that, then that's when it's going to become a problem, because. And it's going to be a problem for all of them, really, when you look at it. Archer, Wood, and Atkinson. I think Bryden Casters is a little bit more robust than that. He's one of those guys that seem to run in and just keep bowling. But
he's one of those workhorse bowlers.
Workhorses, yeah. You do get bowlers like that. I think he's one of those. But the others, I think
like with Neil Wagner from New Zealand, sort of that type of bowler. That steams in and runs in and hits the pitch hard.
Well, I mean, Australia just need to think to themselves, we're going to get 2 or 3 really good spells out of these guys. And then after that, we can just tuck in. I think that's the way they need to look at it.
And we saw that in the second innings, be it with Travis Head playing the way he was.
Yeah.
It still doesn't bode well for England going forward. With that being said, Jihan, the batting, I don't know how to describe it. It was pretty brainless, reckless. People have been using those words. It was shambolic. So we're using all the adjectives here, descriptive words to describe England's batting. But it was poor with this baseball mentality. And they've only got themselves to blame, Jihan. In terms of the batting side of things, Jihan, do you think, it was just England just losing their heads and just probably not having that killer instinct and not being able to finish off oppositions? Because that's been talked about as well, is that when they get into a winning position, they don't finish it off. They had Australia on the ropes and they couldn't finish it off because they lack that ability to do that when they're on top. Baseball is all about, puff your chest out and push the game forward and, look to attack and that. But they don't really do that, Jihan, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because when they're on top, they don't really, finish it off and boss the game, so to speak. So how would you assess their batting in this test match? And do you think they're going to change anything? I think we know the answer to that, but how would you assess their batting and their approach that they took in this game?
Yeah, I think when you look at it, the only reason that they were ahead in the game was because Australia batting was pretty poor in the first innings, especially towards the back end of the innings. But so that sort of, when that happens, that sort of covers up for how bad England's batting was, if that makes sense. But I think there's two things. One is the approach, trying to play as many shots as you would do on a low and slow feather bed at Edgbaston. It's just not going to work on a fast bouncy pitch with a bit of sea movement in Perth, and they found that out because you're just going to keep giving opportunities to Australia. And then, yeah, and the thing, they did that twice as well. They did that twice, and then the second thing is, I think technical errors got exposed as well. When you look at it properly, Ben Stokes pretty much missed a straight ball in the first innings from Mitchell Stark. Yeah, may have done a bit, but that's you should be able to defend that with a good defence. Ben Dockett and Ollie Pope both missed straight balls in the first innings, so they're playing around the front pad. Ben Dockett, his outside edge was, Scott Boland got his outside edge in the second innings. Zach Crawley just he's just driving on the up, well away from his body. Root driving away from his body. So these are all technical flaws that are being exposed, which, when you look at it, are not going to be. They can get away with this sort of thing when they're just playing on those flatties in England with no pace or bounce, no movement, no sideways movement. So there's actually two things. One's the mindset, and then the second thing is I think the technical flaws can be exposed as well, particularly on the faster bouncier wickets in Australia. As I said earlier, I think if they get to the MCG, SCG, and it's a flatty and they start playing bounce ball, it may come off. We don't know. But I'm hoping by that point the Ashes are sealed. Yeah, and they will.
Well, they usually are, Jihan. They usually are before Christmas anyway. So we're used to.
Yeah.
It. So.
Yeah. So I mean, look, the batting was very poor. I mean, the only I think it was 67 overs they batted in the whole Test match. Yeah. Which is and a lot of their runs in the second innings came from the tail. So
mainly from Carson Atkinson, that 50-run partnership.
Carson Atkinson, yeah, and I think Australia got that wrong at that time. Steve Smith's captaincy,
but in the end, it didn't really matter. Really,
it didn't really matter. But I think in close knit games, those sort of runs can become really vital, and that was the case in the previous Ashes at Headingley and at the Oval.
Yes,
runs from Mark Wood and Chris Wokes that basically got England over. They made a huge difference. If not for those runs, Australia would have won that series 4-0. When you think about it, So going forward, I think. I think it depends on if England decide to rein things in a little bit. I don't think they will. I'm hoping they don't. But for Australia, it's just going to be about their batting. They just need to get runs on the board. That's what they need to focus on. They, forget about bounce ball. You just need to wear the fast bowlers down, and then once the ball's soft, just score big runs, and that's what we need from Marnus, Smith, and Head, and Kawaja if he's able to get himself in.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Well, I don't think they're going to turn it down, Jihan. I think they're going to keep going hard, as they say. But if they do that, this could be a very short Ashes series, as I mentioned on the top of this episode today. It will be very short indeed, which is not what people want. They want to see some cricket. We're already 25 days of this series scheduled, and there's only been 2 days of play. So I don't think we're going to get the full 25 after what we saw from this first test by this England side. But yeah, you mentioned that they weren't able to bat more than 30 overs. I think that's what happened when they played that ODI series in New Zealand recently. The same problem happened there. They were knocked over and they didn't even face more than 20 or 30 overs in all those innings. I can't remember, and that's what's happened in this first test match. So yeah, it's England. It's the baseball mentality, and they're just going to keep doing what they're doing. And
are they going to keep doing what they're doing if they lose the series 5-0 and get embarrassed, though?
I think so. And I did say in our preview, Jihan, if you remember, I did say this could be a climax for baseball, could be the end of it. Just got a feeling that if they lose badly here, they've already lost 2 days here in Perth, they're 1-0 down. If they keep persisting with this method and they lose badly, then it does. I think I was listening to Gideon Haigh and Peter Laylaw on Cricketer Tell, and they were speaking about this very point, Jihan, about, McCullum's tenure as coach, and maybe they should bring in someone else to have fresh ideas because baseball's a bit one-dimensional. It's a bit samey, one-trick pony sort of thing. You know what they're going to do. So maybe there could be some talk at the end of the series about that. Maybe McCullum's probably reached the point of his coaching tenure. I think he's got another year or so in his contract. Ben Stokes has got a new contract, which is extended to 2 years. So if that's anything to go by, they're probably sticking around after this Ashes series. But if they lose badly, especially if they lose badly in Brisbane, but the series overall, it may be the end and curtains for baseball. Maybe as with Stokes and McCullum, but maybe if they have a different captain and coach, maybe it won't go away. Maybe it will just be restructured or something. It'll be there in some sort of form. But at the moment, people are very fed up with Stokes and McCullum's comments and mindset when it comes to baseball and their approach. And it's clearly not working because it hasn't really delivered the results that England fans would have wanted. So it will be interesting to see what they do. But they're not going to change. It's like talking to a brick wall, Jihan. You're just going to get the same response. So I don't think they're going to change anytime soon. They're just going to keep doing what they're doing because they think that people think, what England think is that they think they're right in what they're doing, and they think other people are wrong, and that's just the way they've approached it. So. And if you're going to act like that and you're going to say those things, of course, people are going to pick up on that and say things like you're arrogant or the ego, the bravado. England fans are a bit fed up with the same narrative every time they lose or every time they say, this is how we play. It's a bit of a cop-out. So I think they're a bit sick and tired of that. And especially to those people who came for this first test match only, and to only go home after 2 days would be very disappointed. And I did hear this as well, is that you do lose fans through all this as well. And I think England have lost a few fans as well and just said, what's the point? I think Jeff Lemon said on the final word after the game, he said, what's the point if you don't care? Did this England team care? Do they care about do they care about winning the Ashes? And I think Ben Stokes said winning isn't everything. Well, in professional sport, it is because fans care about results. So do they really care? Or they just say, no, we don't care. We just, that's what many fans are thinking. Be interesting to hear your thoughts on that, Jihan, before we move on and preview the second test. But your thoughts on that?
What's that? Whether England care or not?
Yeah, just what I said, really, in terms of, caring, or, the fans being frustrated. If you were in that situation of coming to Perth for 2 days, it being the only test match that you'll watch in this Ashes series, and you have to go home, just your thoughts on all those things, really.
Yeah, I think if I was an England fan, I'd be disappointed, particularly with the way they're batting. But the thing is, at the same time, that's what they've been doing for the last few years. It's interesting that you said that. What was the quote from Ben Stokes? Something about.
Winning isn't everything. I think
it isn't everything. Yeah. I mean, you don't really want to hear
that's
the
what
captain.
He said. Something along those lines.
You don't really want to hear the captain of your side saying that, really. I'm not really sure why he said that, if you think about it, because
I think I heard that from him ages ago. Yeah. I think in the early years of baseball. I think he said something similar to that.
Yeah.
Or something like, we're not defined by our results, or something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things. I mean, you can say that, but it's not true, though, is it? Every team is defined by their results.
Yeah, that's right.
And every supporter looks at their team's results. What supporter looks at a team and think, well, they entertained, but we didn't win. That's fine. No one's thinking that, are they?
No, you care about winning. You want the team to win. That's why you support the team to win and enjoy those victories. Of course, you're going to lose some games here and there, but that's what you're defined as a cricketer, especially cricket teams. And this England team, you think about it, they haven't really won anything significant, really. They've won a few series against New Zealand, West Indies, and Pakistan, but we all know where they're at with their test cricket. Whereas when it comes to India and Australia, they haven't really quite delivered. And we've seen that in this first test match.
Look, I think what's happened here is they were terrible for a while. They obviously they got dropped in the Ashes 4 years ago. Went to the West Indies.
They only won one test out of 17 before.
Yeah,
McCullum,
I mean they lost in the West Indies, which no decent established team does these days generally. And that was terrible for them. And then they needed to change things up. They had new management come in, new captain, new coach, and they came up with this, no holds barred method of trying to win, and it worked for them. But I think that it was always going to come at a point where the way that method was, it was always going to come unstuck at some point. They got, circumstances allowed it to work for them initially, like the way they were able to get really flat wickets ordered in England that get, but flatten out towards day 5, where they were able to chase down totals. Being able to smash the ball all over the place on those roads in Pakistan, and then so it worked out for them in those instances. But I mean, I guess the point I'm trying to make was that method was never going to be sustainable across all conditions.
I suppose
all other teams.
Yeah, that's very true. And I suppose all things come to an end, really. I think we're starting to see that with this England side in terms of the mindset as well. Maybe they could have a new captain. Maybe Stokes is coming towards the end of his career, and Harry Brooks being touted as the successor. So yeah, I think we're starting to see that with England.
Well, I think in the early years they'd win and it would look amazing, but the question was always, are you going to be able to keep doing this?
That's right,
and
that's why a lot of people say with particular players, if you play in that particular brand that England are playing in terms of batting, for example, you can't sustain that in Test cricket. That's what people said about Sam Constance, that you can't keep doing what you're doing because it won't work. And that's right. You just can't go out there and
when we
keep
did
smashing the ball.
We did a little bit of a preview to the Ashes a year ago, and I think I'm pretty I watched it back today, and I said something like it's not going to work in Australia, especially I said particularly on the faster bouncier wickets.
Yes,
and yeah. I envisaged, because I didn't realise the first test was going to be in Perth. I just thought they were going to play at the Gabba, and I thought if they bat first on a day one Gabba wicket, they're going to be all out for 150. Which is pretty much what happened at Perth. They were all out for 170. So yeah, it's just that when you're playing on a wicket with pace and bounce, with the kind of strokes they're trying to play, shots they're trying to play, you're just going to keep giving opportunities to the opposition bowlers.
Yeah, that's right, and. It's making Australia's work easy with the ball, really.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's very true. That's why I said all Australia need to do is get runs on the board. And
I think some of the Australian players said after the game we had Plan A and we didn't really deviate off that. And it worked. So it's.
The Zach Crawley dismissals. I mean, that ball that he's edging to slip in the first innings. It's the same ball that he's smashing through cover off the first ball of the last series. The difference is that's on a slow, low featherbed and Edgbaston.
Whereas this is in Perth, a lot more bounce and pace.
Yeah.
You're asking for trouble.
If you're driving Perth, you need the ball right under your eyes.
You need to play it underneath your eyes, either straight down the ground.
Yeah.
Or if you get the ball in the right area and you time it right, maybe through the covers. But it's a big cardinal sin. And same in Brisbane and so on, they'll have that problem as well.
Yeah, well, the other thing I was thinking about was not much of... There's a split, but quite a few of the England players don't have much of a back-foot game. So I put Zach Crawley in that. Ben Duckett's he's more of a back-foot player. Ollie Pope's he has a good cut shot. You can't bowl short and wide to him. Joe Root has that problem with playing with the angle bat to any length balls. Who's the number 5? Oh, Harry Brook. Yeah, he's more of a front. Again, he's more like a Zach Crawley front foot smasher. Ben Stokes has a good back foot game. Jamie Smith does as well, but he's a bit of a compulsive hooker, and both innings he got out to the short ball. Yeah. So I think some of those players that they're not secure on, they don't have a good back foot game. Whereas like Travis Head, like in that innings, so many of the runs he scored was off the back foot. Whereas England are trying to drive on the up as if it's slow low wicket.
And that's often the case in Australia as well. You need to be good on the back foot as well as the
front foot. Yeah, exactly. You need to have a back foot game. That's the thing. Yeah. And I think quite a few of those England top order players aren't that comfortable playing off the back foot.
No, they're not. And we saw that across the 2 innings of this Test match. So, yeah, pretty much a disappointing performance for England, and they've got a lot of work to do something in this Ashes series. Otherwise, it's going to end ugly. So, their performance overall in this Test, not the greatest. It has to be said.
I think the next Test match, the toss is going to be quite key.
Yes, well, that's a perfect segue, Jihan, because we're going to preview the second Test from the Gabba, the second Ashes Test from the Gabba, and talking about that. But let's have a look at some stats before we do that. Australia and England stats at the Gabba in Test matches. The first Test match was back in 1933, and they played 22 matches. 5 of them have been drawn. Australia won 13. England have won 4. And record in the day-night tests, Australia 13-1 in 14 games in day-night tests. England are 2-5 when it comes to day-night test matches. So Australia clearly well experienced in day-night tests. They had a very convincing win in their last day-night test in the Caribbean against the West Indies, where Stark took 6 for 9 and Scott Boland got a hat-trick, which was pretty good to see if you're an Australian fan, not so much if you're a West Indian supporter. So it's pretty much Australia in terms of favourites for this second test, and obviously they won the first test, so they lead 1-0. Pressure on England, as we've already discussed in today's review of this first test, Jihan. So in terms of team selections, Australia may consider the same 11. There was talk about Travis Head opening and maybe possibly Josh Inglis or Webster to come in. That's if Usman Khawaja wasn't fit. Now, if Usman Khawaja is fit, possibly the same 11. If not, they may consider Travis Head to open, or they may bring in Matt Renshaw. But the squad was announced for the second test for Australia. There was no Matt Renshaw, or there was no Pat Cummins. There was talk about Pat Cummins returning, but he's not been named. So most likely Australia to keep the same 11, you would think. On the other hand, with England, you would think the same 11 as well, but it just depends whether or not Archer and Wood, if they want to play them in back-to-back test matches, England. That may be the only question mark. The rest of the 11 is pretty much the same, you would think, from the first test in Perth. So your thoughts on this second Ashes test, Jihan? Day-night test, pink ball. Obviously, the last Ashes test to be played at the Gabba before it gets demolished after the Olympics in 2030. So they wanted to do it on a day-night. Yes, yeah, it will be demolished and the new stadium will be built with that Olympics in mind in Brisbane. But your thoughts on this, Jihan? Second test, day-night tests. Australia, good record. England, not so much. So your thoughts on how this second test will go, and also your thoughts on the possible 11s as well for both teams, whether or not they'll keep the same team or make some changes. So your thoughts on that, Jihan?
Yeah, the only change I could possibly envisage is maybe Michael Nessa coming in for Brendan Dockett, just because he's known to be a pink ball specialist at the Gabba. Yeah. And he plays for Queensland. That's the only one I can think of. I think Usman Khawaja, it's unfair to make that judgment on him when he was clearly struggling with those back spasms in that first test match. I was having a thing about this. Like, the other thing is, I think people forget that Usman Khawaja was never an opener to begin with. So 4 years ago, when that middle order spot was available in the Ashes, it was between him and Head, and at the time for that number 5 spot, and at the time I actually thought that Khawaja deserved it more because he was scoring a lot more runs and more consistent, but they went for Head because he was younger and they thought that he was the more long-term option.
And he scored 200s in that series. He scored that 100 at the Gabba, and then obviously in Hobart he scored that 100.
Yeah, and then he came back at the Gabba and pretty much destroyed England and nailed his place down. And Usman Khawaja remained.
It was only because he was ill with COVID.
Usman Khawaja remained on the. Yeah, well, Khawaja remained on the outer for that series, and until Head got COVID, which meant that Khawaja took his place, and he scored 200s in Sydney, but that was batting at number 5. And then when Head was due to come back in for the next test match, they felt that they couldn't drop Khawaja because he'd literally just come in and scored 200s, and he was the guy that was going to be dropped for him to be able to fit in the side, and that ended up being Marcus Harris because Harris wasn't able to nail his spot down in the side. And then actually in that Hobart test match after that, once Usman Khawaja went up to open, he actually failed in both innings, pink ball test. But then they went to Pakistan after that, low wickets. Khawaja's game against spin had obviously improved quite a lot, and he scored a lot of runs there, so he sort of nailed down that opening spot, and then a lot of runs in the series in India. He scored a big 180 at Ahmedabad, and then came to England, and then became a key batsman there. Scored a big 100 at Edgbaston. So it got to a point where he was holding down that opener spot, even though he wasn't an opener, a lot better than anyone else that came before him. So, when you think about Harris, Bancroft, even Renshaw 9 years ago, Joe Burns, all these guys, he was the one that came in and gave a bit of stability to that opening partnership. And I was having a look at his series since then, and so he scored a lot of runs in Pakistan, Sri Lanka. He scored a few. He batted well there. West Indies, when they came here 3 years ago, he did okay. Like, he averaged 45. South Africa, when South Africa came here 3 years ago, he struggled against the quicks. But then in the last Test match,
he nearly got that 200, didn't he?
He barely scored. Against Rabada and Nokia in the first 2 Test matches, he barely got a run, and then the last Test match on that sluggish pitch in Sydney, he got 195 not out. So that sort of kept. Then he went to India, averaged 50 in India, then the Ashes, and then when things sort of started to go downhill, it was Pakistan back in Australia. I'm just having a look at. I'm looking at the stats here. So he scored a 90 in the second innings at Perth on that dodgy pitch. I remember he had a big partnership with Warner in the first innings as well, when Warner got 160. And then against West Indies, those 2 Test matches here, top score 75. He averaged 45 there. Things only really started going downhill for him from the New Zealand tour. So New Zealand, he averaged 22. Against India last year, he averaged 20. He scored 150 at the MCG first innings, but apart from that, pretty much was terrible. And then he got that big double 100 in Sri Lanka after that. He sort of clung on to his place in the side.
And he struggled last summer against India as well.
So against India, he got one.
Did.
He got 150 and didn't do anything in the rest of the 9 innings there. So, what did he average there? He averaged 20. He got 150 at the MCG, but that was it. And then in the West Indies, just this recent series, he averaged 20. So I think the problem is he offered some stability there after the previous openers weren't able to establish a partnership with Warner. But then once Warner went, that they were still looking to him to sort of keep that stability going, because if you drop Khawaja, then you've got two inexperienced openers playing together. And I think that's probably why he's clung on to spot for so long as well. They didn't want to suddenly end up with 2 inexperienced openers or 2 openers that haven't, a debutant and someone who hasn't really played much. Renshaw can come back in, but you couldn't really call him experienced at international level, even though he played 9 years ago. So if they drop Khawaja, you're going to have the same situation again, where you've got 2 players that have barely played for Australia opening the batting. So I think they didn't really want that. And then obviously after that first Test match, now a lot of people have called for Khawaja's head, but then you're going to end up with the same problem with two players that don't have a lot of experience opening batting. So I think that's probably the issue for me. I think, but there's a balance as well. Like if he's not contributing anything at all, and he's going to be a liability like in the field and that, then you can't just keep playing him because he's got experience if he's not going to contribute to the team. So I reckon you give him 2 more test matches, and if he fails in both of them, in both innings, then you say, thanks, Usman, for your service to Australian cricket, but we need to look to the future now, and I reckon you get Matt Renshaw in. When it comes to Travis Head opening, I did think about this, like, because I knew that I was thinking, like, even before the series, Khawaja was never an opener. Is there any way we could get him into the middle order and have someone else come up to the top? But again, you're going to end up with the same issue, like two inexperienced openers batting together. Then I thought about maybe after this last test match swapping Head and Khawaja, like Khawaja at 5, Head opening. But then I think the problem there is you're losing that ability for Head to come in against the old ball and take the game away from the opposition.
I think that I agree with that as well. That was my, it's okay for a situational sort of thing, really. And that's what happened in this first test. It just came off.
Yeah.
But as a long-term option, you probably need a specialist opener like a Matt Renshaw eventually in the future, or someone else to come in and do the job. But Travis Head is best suited at 5. He's, most of his hundreds he scored in Test cricket have come at number 5. This one's been the first at the top of the order, but especially with a pink ball, you want someone to come in and counter-attack and 5.
Especially against the pink ball, yeah. And
because you don't want him to open and get knocked over first ball, then what do you do?
Yeah.
You don't have anyone who can do a counter-attacking role. So I think
exactly.
Sometimes when these things happen, the euphoria and the excitement, people don't think about the pros and cons. There are pros and cons to Travis Head opening, but I would like him to stay at number 5 and do his job there.
Well, this is the thing. Like, if he comes in against a pink ball and nicks off twice, then you don't have that guy down the order that's able to take the game.
That's the thing. So I think if Khawaja's fit, he plays. If not, they may consider bringing in Matt Renshaw and having Head at 5 if they want Head to stay at 5, or they go with Head open and you bring in Inglis or Bo Webster or something.
Yeah, so, and I mean the other thing is, even with Khawaja, when he hasn't scored a lot of runs in these last few series, he has actually managed to hang around for a little bit and establish a partnership with the other opener. Even that test match in Jamaica, he batted a whole session on the first day when the ball was moving around a lot, and he only scored 23, but that set them up for that opening partnership, set them up for the match. So if he's able to do a job, I think, I reckon. I think you give him at least 2 test matches, but if he's failing across those 2 test matches, dropping catches and a liability in the field, then I think that's the point when you say, okay, thanks, Usman, for what you've done, but we need to move on from you now.
Yeah, definitely. So most likely Australia with the same 11, which is not a surprise. It just depends on Usman Khawaja's fitness, really.
Yeah.
As I said before, England, possibly the same 11. They may consider Archer and Wood. Your thoughts on that, Jihan, quickly? Do you think they'll keep the same 11? Do you think they'll roll the dice and say, Archer and Wood again? It's been a long break. We just go in with the same team. Really? I don't think they'll change much in terms of batting personnel.
I think you'd think that they'd hope to pull up reasonably well, like 12 days later. They should have enough rest between test matches. So
I don't think they're going to play Bashir. I don't think they're going to do that again. I think it's pretty obvious that they're most likely to keep the same 11 and just
I think
they'll
play the same 11.
Yeah. So you would think both teams may play the same 11. For Australia, it depends on Khawaja's fitness. For England, just depends if they want to play Archer and Wood in back-to-back tests. But with the long break, they may roll the dice and say, you know what, let's just do it and see what happens. Prediction for winner, Jihan? I think it's pretty obvious who you're going to say, but your prediction anyway for this test?
Look, I think if Australia win the toss and bat first, they'll definitely win. If England win the toss, it'll be be 70-30.
Stokes is usually a bowling first captain, so.
Well, I was surprised he didn't bowl first at Perth. because I think if he did, then they would have had more chance of winning. But yeah, I think he's not gonna bowl first though, because they're gonna want to bowl under the lights. So I reckon.
That's right.
I think both captains will want to bat first. What was the question? What my prediction was?
Your prediction of who's going to win?
Yeah, Australia going to win this Test match.
I think I would agree with you, Jihan, because of the record that they have in day-night tests. Mitchell Starc's going to be a handful.
I think it'll be 3 days as opposed to 2 days.
Yes, probably. Yes, hopefully. And obviously Australia have got more experience in day-night tests compared to England. When you look at the stats, Crawley, Duckett, Pope, Root, Brooke and Stokes have played a day-night test in the batting lineup. Smith hasn't. And then with the bowling group, you've got Archer and Wood have played one test when it comes to the day-night. Atkinson and Cars haven't played any. So it just shows you that they don't play a lot. But, excuse me, as my voice starts to go there. Yeah, you would think Australia are clear favourites to hopefully claim a 2-0 lead. And that's the advantage of winning the first test. And you have the advantage there, pressure on England to try and bounce back and do something with their team and their mentality. But we shall see what happens come the second test match, Jihan. Right, Jihan, some final thoughts to finish our first test of this Ashes series. Final thoughts from you, Jihan. How would you describe and sum up what was a crazy test match?
Yeah, look, I was happy with Australia's bowling. I think for the series going forward, as long as Australia are able to get runs on the board, they should be able to win this fairly easily, I reckon. Yeah, so get runs on the board, and then from there, just let Bazball do the rest of the work for you. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good summation of what happened in this test match, Jihan. My final thoughts from this first Ashes test, and just to sum it up, really, crazy test match, 2 days. Yeah, watching it was in fast forward mode, really. And to be honest, Jihan, I felt a bit dizzy afterwards watching this test match, I have to say, because it just happened so quickly and you just have to process what has happened. Obviously, Travis Head was outstanding, one of the best hundreds I've seen. Obviously, I jumped the gun a bit earlier, Jihan, calling him the player of the match. I forgot it was Mitchell Starc, but I said my South Australian bias is kicking in there. But it's good to see Travis Head do well and a fellow South Australian, taking the world by storm. He was outstanding. Starc was outstanding. Australia seized the moments and were able to capitalise on that. England let themselves down with self-sabotage and Bazball and only got themselves to blame. But it was a crazy test match. And, let's hope the second test in Brisbane and for the remainder of this series, we get a little bit more cricket than 2 days. But it was entertaining, exciting. Depends where you look at it from both supporting groups. But, an unbelievable start to an Ashes series, which has been highly talked about. Probably the hype and the anticipation is probably the same as it was in 2005 for this Ashes series. So let's see what we have for the next 4 test matches. But definitely a crazy test match, that's for sure. Thanks, everyone, for listening to our review of the first Ashes test between Australia and England. If you're watching or listening to this episode of the podcast on our YouTube channel, let us know your thoughts on this first Ashes test between Australia and England in the comments. We would love to hear what you have to say. The Dibbly Dobbly Podcast has you covered for this Ashes series. Be sure to subscribe to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast YouTube channel and click the bell so you don't miss out on any episodes from this Ashes series. Also, like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Jihan, once again, thank you for joining me today to review this first Ashes test between Australia and England. Always great to hear your thoughts and insights. And I'm sure everyone listening and watching would enjoy your thoughts and insights as well. Thanks for watching and listening. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.